Hello, welcome to another review video. I hope you're enjoying the Christmas season, and if you are and you're watching it over the Christmas season, thank you for taking a second out to watch me review the Stardust Grail by Yume Kitasei. Now, wow, that's reflective. Wow, I hope I can edit this better. I bet I can't. So I'm giving this 3 stars on Goodreads, and that's quite a generous rating from my reading experience. And I'm adding a good half star to possibly a full star based on the fact that even though I've got this lovely hardcover to wave around in front of you, I actually listened to it almost entirely as an audio. The audio was not great. I detested the audio narration. More on that later. So we open with our protagonist, who is Maya Hashimoto. She, in the far future, is a settler or colonist, and there's a whole debate about that, that I think is meant to talk to Western civilization, colonization. And she comes from a far-flung world whose name I've completely forgotten, if it's ever mentioned. But she has been accepted into the far future Princeton on Earth, where she is studying probably alien archaeology or alien artifacts or something like that. She doesn't do much studying, so it doesn't matter. We start this book inside her head, and a dreary, over-emotional, depressed head it is to be inside of. Seriously, for the first few chapters I was thinking I may well discontinue this. I can't bear it anymore. And the rest of the time I was thinking, seriously, future world, get this girl to a doctor and get her on some corrective medications now. So we keep getting these coy mentions on how Maya was for years this galactic uber thief who travels around the galaxy in a small ship with an alien called Uncle. It's spelled with an A in the book, but I didn't know that until right at the end. This travel seems to make her allegedly this complete authority on all things species artifact, and we see her setting her co-workers, her co-students, and occasionally her professors right on their mistakes. Again in those first few chapters, especially on Frenro artifacts, her friend Uncle being a Frenro. So these first few chapters were bad. They weren't well done. I didn't love them, but I bore with them in that I accept that the author's trying to establish the character for future reading. But right here it was quite clear that the target demographic wasn't me, because while I'm quite sure that there are many people out there who will enjoy this character and enjoy the setup of that character, I'm not that person. I see them as being people who are newer to their reading career, or possibly newer to reading science fiction. Those early chapters to me felt incredibly young adult. I say that about a lot of books that are not meant to be young adult, and I don't believe this is. Apparently there's another category called new adult, but my brain just checks out at that stage. I don't care. So maybe this is a new adult. I'm not sure that it's an established adult though. Unless you like that sort of thing. Hey, I read kids' books. I still read little golden books. What do I know? Anyhow, finally, Maya's warrumping around, setting all her friends straight, and she finally steals a book. She steals a book. She hears that this book has been received as part of a deceased estate, and it's an original journal of this U-Butte amazing mission hundreds of years ago that discovered all these things. Maya's a great fan of the leader, who was a Japanese woman, I do believe, though the name sounded a bit more Chinese. Anyway, Asian woman, older Asian woman. Love the fact that you're using older Asian women as primary characters in this book, which I otherwise don't bond with terribly well. So she's told this book exists and she wants to see it, and she managed with her friend that you can only then. An established academic from another university comes and takes it, so she steals it. In the same way that if I get a purse that is bright, brilliant red with high-vis stripes that's this size, stick it in my back pocket, and so that 50% of it is protruding, and walk down any market street in the Middle East or Asia and it isn't there at the end, well, that kind of stealing. It's like this was so obvious. I really hope it was meant to be obvious. It will be obvious to any intelligent reader that she was intended to grab that book by the academic who is so stereotypical that I won't talk about him anymore, but does keep, unfortunately, reoccurring. Anyhow, so what Maya's previous racketeering about the universe was all about was her friend Uncle, whose ship she was travelling on. Uncle is a Frenro, a really interesting sounding species, a little bit of squid, a little bit of jellyfish, no vertebrae or centralized brain. I was really on board with the aliens that Yume Kitasei was creating. Great aliens. Worth it probably to read it just for the aliens. They're dying out. Their race has been cut off from their homeworld for a long time, and they're no longer able to produce children. And not only can they no longer have children, but though they live for hundreds of years, they have a kind of hive mind racial memory that lasts much longer, thousands and thousands of years. However, the whole memory relies on individual memories in different and interesting ways that aren't really spelled out as much as they could be. But the whole Frenro Uncle memory, it had a lot of holes and it had a lot of plot issues. However, I really enjoyed it. I'm okay with those potholes for sheer enjoyability. Anyhow, this race memory means that none of the race even remember how to have children, but they think it might have to do something with this artifact that Maya has called the Stardust Grail. Now, this is considered a semi-mythical artifact. One hasn't been seen. The only mentions refer back to this same book that Maya steals. And this old and unique record of the voyage may point them to the Stardust Grail, also known as the Stardust Machine. And that's essentially the core of this book. Now, the audio made this book way too long, and probably because of the audio, I felt that the pacing of this book was dreadful. I felt really, really terrible. And here's the point to mention that this book has got an awful lot of 4 or 5 star reviews online, especially on Goodreads. Most people absolutely loved it. Without exception, the 2-star reviews, which mine might end up being in the long run, all listened to the audio. So if you're thinking of the Stardust Grail and you are considering Yume Kitasei, then I think you should do everything to avoid the audio. The narration is what makes this stop-start, I suspect, because we of the audio team are the only ones who mention it. So you have these brief moments of events and actions and things happen and people do things and maybe even have conversations, and then you've got these long periods where nothing happens. And the next event seems strangely disconnected from the previous event. So by the time I was 300 minutes into the 700-minute marathon, I felt as if I must have already seen the climax once or twice, but I hadn't. First we go to a world that Maya and Uncle have been to before, and they are wanted, and it's dangerous for them to go there. It's dangerous for any Frenro to go there because it's a different species. I think it's called Belzoar. And there's a whole longer explanation of why, yes, Belzoar, the most prolific and advanced people. Another thing I didn't have was this interpretation of species. More on that later. So they go there anyway, and the notion is to rob a museum of an artifact that they've discovered there due to this book that Maya didn't steal. And then when they get there, they discover they're not the only thieves, and the other team is the guy who held the book out and waved it in front of Maya's nose, who represents a federated human. It's a big thing. It's a pretty good heist. It was actually quite enjoyable, and then nothing stretches forever. Then we find ourselves on a Frenro colony world that no one knew existed, even Maya. And that is noteworthy because there's this little Deus Ex Machina info drop somewhere that tells us that Maya and Uncle are in telepathic communication because Maya was once infected by some disease on the world that she wasn't a colonist on but a settler. And we then learn much later on where this disease came from, and it's the Frenro. It's messy. It's messily described. And if you're reading it and you're reading it fast, that's probably okay. But for something that took weeks to listen to, it's not okay. So the Frenro colony is an aquatic colony, and I love the description of it, and I loved everything that happens in it. And then we've got this big explosion thing happens, and then we go somewhere else, and we've got another long thing until the last thing happens. The last thing happens is they're going after this other grail, because maybe this one single grail in the museum wasn't the only grail after all, and maybe it wasn't even a grail. Who knows? Who knows? It didn't taste right, apparently. And then, by now we're thoroughly bound up in this version of Federated Human Military. It's called the CNE. I don't remember what that stands for. I'm not going to bother to look it up. It is not particularly well described and seems entirely generic to any other federated human galactic organization you have ever heard anywhere. I am 90% certain that Andre Norton wrote a very similar one. I am 100% certain that Robert Heinlein did. I feel like it's not that different from the Tanya Half Valor series. Great series, by the way, if you haven't read it. Basically, this is a pick your author. This is the same. Now, the other thing that ties into is this map, which I had no indication of in the audio, obviously. Those big white spots are nodes, because in this galaxy, human travel between planets and colonization and everything is dependent on these nodes. Any given galaxy has one or two of these nodes hanging in the sky. Some only have one, some have as many as 4. But the CNE want the Grail because they will stop these nodes that appear to be dying or going out or vanishing. And as one vanishes, all communication to that world is completely lost. There's no other way of getting there. So the CNA are a bit desperate because they think the Grail will help renew the nodes. Now, the nodes is a great construct. It's a great way of wormholes through space to the other planets, etc., etc. No one's ever explored the entirety of them, etc., etc. Nothing new to the committed science fiction reader, but to a new reader of science fiction, this will be great, and I'm not surprised they're giving it 4 or 5 stars. It is actually quite well done, but it is very predictable, and I don't know if that's because I'm old and cynical and I've read thousands of books in my life, or because it's just superficially written. I don't even know if Yume Kitasei was trying to make it obscure, whether she was trying to make it obvious, but it is obvious. If anyone at all does not see the plot twist regarding the nodes and the Stardust Grail and the Frenro, I don't know what to say to you. It's so incredibly obvious throughout. Anyway, obvious doesn't mean bad. If you know what's going to happen, it doesn't matter if the getting there is at the right pace and you enjoy it. And overall, there's a lot to enjoy here. Except on audio, which I listen to. So, the last part of the book, we get to the encyclopedium. The encyclopedium is even more mythical than the Stardust Grail. But they get to it again because of this book, and you've got the CNE wandering out around there trying to follow them or shadow them or get there before them. Once we reach the encyclopedium world, and this isn't a spoiler at all, if you didn't foresee that we were going to end up on the encyclopedium, again, I don't know what to say to you, but that's on you because it's obvious. From the encyclopedium onward, the story is brilliant. It is well paced. It's got some inconsistencies, but I don't care. They were good. There's nothing about that final writing episode, probably quite a significant chunk there, and I enjoyed it. I might even reread a bit of it after this review. So I really enjoyed that part, and then the ending came. And then the ending was done, because the ending was the ending. So, will you enjoy this book? Maybe. I recommend against the audiobook, but in order to enjoy this book, you have to enjoy the main character. So Maya felt to me immature and young adult and unformed. Unformed as a personal character, not necessarily as a written character. Now what I feel that Kitasei was trying for was the sort of character that Napa wrote in, where is it? It's up there somewhere. It's a great book. I reviewed it early in the year. Ah yes, 36 Streets by Napa, Australian author, brilliant, young, conflicted, gritty character, and I think that that's what Yume Kitasei was trying for with Maya. Maya is not any of those things. She is whiny and unformed, but I am clearly not the demographic that this author is writing for. And so people who are of the right age and reading experience will probably love Maya, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, I'm just saying that I didn't. Now, other thing about this book is that for those people who crave a diversity, especially younger readers, you will probably love Maya and you will probably love this world building. The diversity was actually one of my favourite parts of the early part of the book and was probably one of the things that kept me reading. So Maya's friend Pickle is non-binary, they, them. Yes, Pickle. I didn't invent that. Someone else did. I think that they're referred to as they, them. They may be referred to as a. Maya's other friend is an alien Frenro, so it is a cross between a jellyfish, a hydrozoan. I'm going to go hydrozoan over jellyfish and squid, probably. And they are Z throughout. I like Z. I think it's a good pronoun. Then I'm sure there's another pronoun of someone else who is an A in there somewhere. If not Pickle, someone else. And then there's the asexual robot Maddox, who I liked, and a non-traditional ex-soldier Will. So we've got this very, very enjoyable alphabet soup of pronouns, and we've got this gender musical chairs game happening, and I was there for it. I really enjoyed it. I also really did like the aliens. There's a lot of aliens, and I think they are well written, well described, well thought out. I think she did a marvelous job with the aliens. The audio, and there is in the real copybook that you should be reading, there's a little appendix at the back of what the types of aliens are. In the narration, we finished the last page of the book, which is fairly forgettable, and it goes straight into reading this appendix of the aliens. I was mystified by that life choice. You could at least have told me you were about to read the appendix. I thought we hadn't finished the book yet because the ending is a bit soft. Bad audio. Naughty audio. Do not do these things. For my taste, the characters throughout were rather superficial and at times flat, but they were serviceable. Even the incredibly flat treating of academics and so forth, and the moral ambiguities of the Human Federation bombing a planet into non-existence because they got a bit irate. All of these things, you can deal with them. They work for the novel well enough. What doesn't work so well for me, and works very poorly for some other people as well, is the moral ambiguities, because there's a lot of them. The Frenro have done some bad things. Were they intentional? Were they not? Uncle isn't sure. Maya gets treated a little bit poorly, all things considered, several times by her friend Uncle. She is conflicted about that in the way that someone who has grown up emotionally depauperate and only relies on one person for emotional validation is completely devastated when that person demonstrates they don't care for them. Does Uncle care for Maya or not? You could argue it either way, but this moral ambiguity of treatment of Maya and Uncle's viewpoint, that's never really addressed to my satisfaction. I'm not sure that the author actually realizes how little she addresses the Frenro's ambiguities, Uncle's ambiguities, Maya's experience, or indeed the CNE's ambiguities. I'm not sure that she realizes just how little she has addressed those things. She mentions them, but she doesn't address them. She certainly doesn't resolve them, and I'm not sure that she always acknowledges them. I don't need characters or moral situations to be black or white. I actually prefer that they're not, but I need the author to demonstrate a recognition that they exist that I do not entirely feel I got there. Now, The elephant in the room, the pink elephant sitting right there, is the audio. The audio was abysmal. Who did it? Well, I'm not entirely certain because I've already returned my audiobook. I think there's a chance it was narrated by Catherine Chin. Catherine Chin, I'm sure that you are a great author, a great actor. I imagine you can narrate many things well. Everything I say now, which is basically bashing the narration, is my personal opinion. I thought the narration was utter shit. There's a couple of problems with it. This is an emotive book at times. You need that emotiveness to establish Maya as a character. I don't need to hear Maya feeling all the time. Oh, she felt. It was so emotionally fraught. And it was the narration. The narration was doing this. If I pick up this book and I read the same section, wow, Pickle's eyes filled with tears. That's horrible. Wow, Pickle's eyes filled with tears. That's horrible. Goes the narration. And I am exaggerating, but I had to listen through all of this through my eardrums, and I've justified in being annoyed by some of it. The other thing is, did I mention 700 minutes for a 300 odd page book? 300? 302, 307, 307 minus acknowledgements page book. 700 minutes. That is because the author spoke like this. And I don't know how. I do not know physically how anyone can speak that slowly, unless she had a timer in front of her counting down the half seconds that she had to pause between one word and the other. I really didn't like this narration. I really do not recommend it. This book could have gone so much faster and so much better with a bit of gumption. Maya does things with gumption. If she's doing something with gumption, she doesn't need, oh, she is doing this thing. She needs gumption. And sometimes we actually need to hear a sentence progressing in a logical order at a logical pace. For a gothic romance, especially a very, very, very thin gothic romance, that narration style may work. For me, it 100% didn't work. And the thing that makes me think it's not a me problem, but a you problem, is that every other Goodreads review and other review, there's a couple of other sites I went to, every single one that listened to the audio rated it at the highest 3 stars. All the other 2-star reviews are of the audio. This audio ruins this book. Sorry. Now, that's me ranting about the last audiobook for a while. I'm on to the Canterbury Tales next by Chaucer. There is no way that even the word salad of Chaucer, full of words and phrases I don't understand, is going to be anywhere as annoying as this book was in narration. Thank you for watching. I hope I can correct the mirror imaging that I suspect is happening right now. If not, laugh about it by all means. Adrian, I know you will. Call me returning to the counter universe. Thank you for watching. Read good books, maybe even this book. But if you're going to read this good book, read it with your eyes, not with your ears. Bye.